Hello and welcome to the next video in the Privacy Compliance Implementation How-To videos. This one will be focused on consent categories, which is one of our standards. So let's dive in. Standards in ObservePoint are used to take the data that we find from your site and apply judgments or assertions to the results. For consent categories specifically, it outputs in the privacy reports first and foremost whether a technology such as cookies is approved or unapproved. If it is approved, that means that we have found a match between the cookies that showed up on the site and one of the cookies in your consent categories. In this example, you can see we have 3 consent categories. And if it matches, we will tell you which consent category it belongs to. So to get to this point where we're telling you how many unapproved cookies and how many approved cookies, and the same goes for tags, and request domains and geos, to get to this point in our reporting, we need to set up the consent category and then apply it to the audit where it belongs. As a way just to think through this, strictly necessary or essential cookies, it doesn't have to be limited to cookies. A consent category contains both cookies, tags, and request domains and geos. You can use whichever of the 3 or all of them that makes sense for your testing purposes. But strictly necessary should be applied to all scans, since even in an opt-out scenario, most websites would still be deploying strictly necessary or essential cookies. I would say that's pretty standard. So for the others, like analytics, targeting, functional, you may only want to apply those to audits where we are opting in or we expect those consent categories, those categories of cookies and tags, to be present. Now, getting to the point of how do we create these, we have a few options. For cookies, we have more options than the others, and I'll just go through them real quick. We can import cookies from a CMP export. Some CMPs have an export option where it outputs a CSV with your cookies categorized. And as long as you follow the instructions that we require, it mostly has to do with the headers of the columns. You can use this download template as an example. As long as you follow those instructions, it will automatically produce consent categories and update lists with cookies if they are not already found in your CSV upload. The next option is if you have OneTrust on your website, you can use this tool that will import OneTrust cookies categorized for you. You simply enter in your website name, we'll say observepoint.com, and you choose the region that you want to emulate that we are coming from. Some consent management configurations allow for differences in the cookies that a user would opt into or see. And so if that is the case with your setup, it's perhaps worth it to consider creating a bunch of lists from different locations if you want to test to make sure those locations are having the correct cookies deployed and no more than that expected list of cookies. We can also create a new consent category from scratch, and I'll just write test here for getting past this point. We'll always want to probably choose an approved list. This means we're intending this to be a list of approved items in this category. We can also call this essential to make it more real world relatable. And then I can choose either a scan to import cookies from, or I can just start from scratch. If I start from scratch, we have 0 cookies, 0 tags, 0 request domains, and I can start adding all of these. For example, here's my first cookie, and I can rinse repeat until I am done. And then tags, we can add tags from our database. And I can say Google Tag Manager, and I've added my first tag. For request domains and geolocations, you have a few options. If you just want to approve certain locations that you want to deem acceptable for a given consent category, you might even choose all of Europe as an acceptable, European countries as acceptable locations to see request domains coming from and data being sent back to. And so you can type in Europe, and as you can see, it populated a bunch of European countries, and you can edit this if needed. And then we click done. So now, regardless of the request domain, we have approved all European request domains. And that could be one of our consent categories, essential. And then we can apply that to audits where they belong. And then if we want to import from the results of an existing audit, I can say, we'll call this strictly necessary. And I want to pull in cookies, tags, and geolocations from my opt-in scan. You might want to do this if you would prefer to work backwards. We can say, all right, here's all the cookies that I know are on my site as of today. I'm just getting the strictly necessary ones, so let's selectively just remove those that are not strictly necessary. Same with tags and request domains. And then we can create this list and save, and then apply it where it needs to go. There's a few ways to assign consent categories to audits. You can do so from this view. Then we choose the consent category we want. We can say essential, and then we choose the audits that they should belong to. So for following the best practice as described earlier, we might add the essential to all scans, since we expect that in all consent scenarios. Alternatively, we can go to a single audit and go to the settings. I'm going to click edit here and go to standards and then to consent categories. And on the right-hand side, we can see which consent categories have been added, and on the left-hand side, which consent categories have not been applied to this audit. And we can swap out consent categories as needed, and then click Save. That's everything on consent categories and how to implement them. Thanks for watching the video, and we will see you in the next one.